Are we being too literal?
No, you fool. We're following orders. We were told to comb the desert, so we're combing it.
Found anything yet? Nothing yet, sir! How about you?
Not a thing, sir!
What about you guys? We ain't found shit!
Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is The Broken Meeple, a show where I devote my time to ranting and raving about board games, but usually more the ranting part. We'll get on with the video in just a second, but first, my sponsor would like a quick word, and they haven't spoken in a while. As gamers, we find it hard to deal with empty shelves, some worse than others. You therefore want a supplier that has what you need at affordable prices and delivers on time. For me, that supplier is Kiender. They offer a discount on bulk purchases as well as a point scheme for future acquisitions down the line. If there's a hot title you're after, chances are Kiender's got it. Wingspan? Mine. Arc Nova? Mine. Eclipse? Actually, I hate that game, it's terrible, but you might like it. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to Kiender and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
We got a big one today, and I don't necessarily mean big in terms of the length of the video, although there is a reasonable amount to talk about here. I'm talking about big as in, oh boy, everybody's going to want to know my opinion on this. This is Vantage, and it's from Stonemaier Games, and the first thing you instantly know about Stonemaier Games is the word hype. Anytime anything gets announced by Stonemaier, it is hyped to unbelievable degrees. I mean, all the games that come out for them, maybe bar one or two. I think Stamp Swap didn't really make any difference whatsoever. You know, these ones do get hyped up a lot. Like, oh my god, the next one, it's going to be amazing and stuff. And this one, I think, has been like 8 years in the making. It's done by Jamie Stegmaier himself as opposed to some other designers.
And I'm his friend Jesus.
So a lot of people have been clamoring for this one all year round. Now, this sort of game is basically an exploratory, open world game. You jump into the world, you're just thrown in, here's a mission, go and do it. Find some way to do it, with a lot of cards. It's definitely got some big similarities to something like Seventh Continent, which I think I've reviewed in the past. I can't remember if I've done a video on it or not, but I've definitely played it. And, you know, before people sort of get on my case, yes, I do like this type of game. I am sick and tired of people using the argument of, oh, you just got a game that you wouldn't like or something. And it's like, Lands of Galzir is on my shelf downstairs, as I've been repeatedly saying, and I gave it a 9 out of 10 when I reviewed it. I've done a video on it. On here is Sleeping Gods and Near and Far. Both of them are story open world games. Certainly more Sleeping Gods than Near and Far, but they are. And I have played many story-based campaign games before, like Tainted Grail and the such. So shut it. Damn! Sorry, just had to get that out there, because every time I see that trope argument used as a defense, pretty much you can ignore anything the person is saying after they mention those words. But to get on with the rest of the video, Vantage, yes, so open world exploratory. You go into this world, you have a little mission, it's a bunch of cards, and you need to do your mission somehow. Go explore, go find stuff, go talk to people, go do anything that you can find and see and do in order to complete your mission. So it's definitely a very open-ended game. A lot of people are being hyped for this one. This is a genre that I do get some enjoyment out of. The question is, what is this going to do that others in the genre haven't already done? This is not exactly a sparse market for this type of thing. You know, there have been some big releases for open world exploratory games, so what new stuff can Vantage bring to the pile?
I hope they remember you.
Now, before I start, there are going to be some spoilers in this video, but they are going to be small spoilers, guys. I mean, this is a game with 1,700 cards in it for stuff that you can find, okay? And about, let's say 800 plus location cards. So yes, I'm going to have pictures of some of the stuff I've been using to illustrate my points. But they're not spoilers, okay? It's like spoiling a sentence someone says in the movie, as opposed to spoiling how the big bad dies in the movie. You know, there's a fundamental difference here. So if you really are prone to any kind of spoiler whatsoever, then by all means play the game first and then come back here. But seriously, it's not going to reveal that much, guys, but I need to reveal these sort of things in order to illustrate the points I'm making, because otherwise it won't make sense without the context. Anyway, so the game, as I said, pretty easy game overall. There's a very small rule book, but basically you are thrust into a world and your ship has crashed and you take control of a character. A character is represented by one of these cards. And with this character, you have certain attributes to them. They have dice slots and they have boost spaces. So boost is basically represented by a cube where you spend the boost and you perform, like, you get a little bonus or you get some extra ability on the card. But the main way it works is by way of skill tokens and challenge dice. So you start with a bunch of these at the start of the game and you may be able to acquire more as the game goes on. And they basically represent 6 different skills. This is a starter, no, that's a starter location. Well, let's grab one of those because we are going to need to talk about it in some way. But you'll start the game at a basic location. It will have a bunch of random skills. You'll roll the dice, see what you get, and this kind of represents your location that you crashed in. You know, it's like, I'm flying around space, oh no, we're crashing, boom, where do I end up on this massive planet? You then have a location card, which typically, I suppose in this case it wasn't the best example of a card, yep, this one's a bit better, which typically has 6 coloured bars down the side, which represent skills that you can do, which is typically related to things like movement, taking, engaging, fighting, or repairing, healing, that sort of thing. But they come in 6 different guises. Anytime that you do an action on a card, whether it's a player card or a location card or moving to another location, you have a book that you will read for that particular skill. And there's a bunch of these, so this is just the yellow skill with a load of little paragraphs, and I do mean little paragraphs. I mean, at most you're going to get like 2 sentences here, so there's not a ton of reading, but each of them will have a challenge rating on them, a sort of skill difficulty, and this represents the challenge dice. So whenever you get one of these skills, you may spend tokens to basically reduce the difficulty of that check, but you always succeed. It's not a pass or fail like in other games, and we'll talk about that later, but it's the idea that you will pass it, it's just how much time, health, and morale did it suck up in the process. You have these 3 markers as stats, and depending on the difficulty level, you'll set them accordingly, and if any of them get to 0, there's a chance the game might end in a failure at that point, although not always. But you effectively are trying to roll these dice in such a way that you will not lose too much of these stats while you're doing it. So let's say I've got a check that I've got to roll 4 dice. Well, I might have 2 skill tokens. Okay, well, I'll spend 2. I don't have to roll 2 of these dice. I then roll the 2 dice. Let's say I get an hourglass and a star, so I could lose time and morale on this. Well, the card that I've got in front of me, let's see if I can find a reasonable card just to sort of showcase, really. This will do. I mean, you can't see what it is. But basically, it will have little square slots on it, and if the dice matches, whether it's for a particular skill, a particular type of skill, or just a particular symbol on the die, I can place the die on those slots in order to not suffer penalties. Any die left over that I can't utilize on a card or in some other way goes in the dice penalty box, and that's when I suffer stat decreases. So you're trying to mitigate the dice that you roll with the item cards or various, you've got items, you've got personality cards, you've got experience cards, you've got vehicles, you've got people, you've got companions, there's all sorts of different cards, but they all have the same format. Dice slots, boost abilities, and you're basically trying to manipulate the dice in such a way that you don't lose too many stats while you're trying to get the mission done. When the challenge pool gets to a point where there's not enough dice in the pool for the skill that you're doing, they all refresh off your cards and you do the check as normal. So it's a balancing act of not only having enough spaces to put the dice with the skills that you're doing, but you also want to try and refresh the pool as often as possible, because by refreshing the pool, they clear off your cards, which means there are more slots for them to go on. And it's basically a juggling act as such. On the side, you've got money that you might be able to acquire and credits, which may or may not be useful in the game that you're doing, but sometimes you can find a trader and you need to buy stuff of them. But that's kind of like the premise of the game. You basically move from location to location, and you can only do one action on a location anyway. So once you've done something there, you have to move somewhere. So it does encourage actual exploration. But once you've gone through a bunch of locations, eventually you'll hopefully be able to satisfy the conditions of your mission. or you might be able to fill up your 3x3 grid of cards in order to satisfy a destiny requirement. And you can finish the game in one of three ways. Utter failure, that your stats just decrease and you can't get them back up again, but usually it may end in a mission victory, where you do your mission, but that's about it, you kind of end it there. Or you go the full route and do a epic victory, which means that you've done a mission victory as well as a destiny victory. Destiny victories are harder to accomplish, although there is one main destiny requirement, which is just get a bunch of cards in front of you, survive 6 turns, and you get off the planet and you win. So it's a co-op adventure. You can play this multiplayer, but ho ho ho, we are going to talk about that at some point later. Uh-oh. You can also play it solo, and it's just basically an open world game. Get sucked into the world, here's your mission and destiny, go do stuff, and see if you can survive.
What are you waiting for? A kiss goodbye?
So with all these games, variety is going to be a key thing, and certainly there's no shortage of it here. The variety in this game is pretty insane. I mean, when you've had 8 years to make a game like this, you're kind of going to expect it. I mean, that's where the time goes. It doesn't really go on the development of the rules, because there isn't really a lot of rules here. It's more that it goes on to all these different story aspects, as well as trying to come up with like 2,000 plus cards to use as all the different items and stuff. That stuff takes time. I mean, as for Ryan Lockett, he's kind of the king of this kind of thing at the moment. But, you know, this is definitely got a lot of variety in the box. I mean, you've got, 800 plus location cards that all have different skills on them, and you can only do one thing on each location. So even though you might see the same place again on a subsequent playthrough, you may do something different while you're there, and you'll have different cards that might interact with it. So that's already a good amount of variety. But just having all of these cards in the box that can be, some kind of item, some kind of experience, and some of them are going to be duplicates because you've got multiple characters that you can pick from, one for each skill, and there may be like one version of this for this character, one version of this for this character. So there are some duplicate runoffs here, but it's not that noticeable. There is still a lot in this game. Add on all the different storybook aspects that you've got, to all the different missions that you can do, because even that's a good amount of variety, because you'll start the game with one of, a bunch of missions that are all on here, and there's quite a few. I mean, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5. I mean, you're talking like 20 odd missions here that you could potentially be doing, and they do range, like find your whole potential, go find this rival that was on the planet, go find a bunch of flora samples, just try and survive a certain amount of time. There's all sorts of different ones that are in there on top of the destiny victories, which are kind of like alternate ways to, as I say, get a full victory, because you can either do mission, or you can do destiny, or you can do both for an epic. Typically, you will always do a mission victory before you end up doing a destiny victory, but I don't know, maybe your game just went in a weird fashion. But yeah, suffice to say, don't worry about this being like repetitive in terms of, oh, I've seen the same stuff all the time. No, there's plenty here to keep you going.
Really spectacular, spared no expense.
Now, I'm going to be making comparisons to stuff like Lands of Galzier and Sleeping Gods and some of these other games, because this is definitely trying to enter into the genre. Well, one advantage that this one does have, and kind of Lands of Galzier had the same sort of thing as well, is that it's kept simple. Lands of Galzier has got very simple rules in it. Simple ways that the cards work, simple ways that the skills work, and an app companion to help with it. Sleeping Gods is relatively straightforward, although it's a bit of a logistical nightmare when you play it solo with a bunch of the characters, and Seventh Continent had a fair bit of rules in it as well, with the way that some of the cards interacted. But Vantage is kept deliberately pretty simple. It's got easy rules. A lot of it is just pretty much what is on the card. Most of it is explained to you in the storybooks aspect, and once you get the hang of how the challenge dice system works and the boost system, that's kind of 75% of the whole game that you've learnt there. It's a shame that the rulebook does make a little bit of a pig's ear of it, though. I mean, I could talk about this in the bad section, but I'll talk about it here because we're on it. This rulebook could have been better. It's not like badly worded as such. I mean, when you actually find the rule that it's trying to explain, it will explain the rule for you and you will understand it. I mean, maybe they could have used a few more pictorial examples, but I mean, it's not too bad. What's a bit weird with this rulebook is the layout. The layout is kind of odd. It's like somebody knew what the rules were and they wrote a decent rulebook for it. But whereas they can write well and they can develop the game fine, their editing skills are left to be desired.
You get to make and break the rules here.
It goes into a gameplay overview, great. Then the anatomy of location cards, okay, fine. Just the location cards, mind, not all the other cards. Then it goes into a sample term. But we don't even know how turn sequences work. And what about the other card anatomies? Why just the location cards? Nope, we're going to go into a sample turn. Then it explains how to take a turn. Well, why didn't you explain to me how to take a turn first before you do the sample turn? That's just kind of weird. But then as you get further on, it then explains like key stuff that you need to know, like how do boost work? And it's like, well, I would have liked that earlier in the book, thank you, when I'm trying to reference things. And then before it gets to end of game, it has the section for the card anatomy for these cards. Why is that right before the end of the game? Why is it not earlier? You know, just a little bit of thinking about the layout of the book would have made this like super simple to learn. And you know, it sounds like I'm ragging. I'm kind of embellishing it a little bit because you know, it's not like this game is going to confuse you and go, oh, I don't understand how this works or anything. It doesn't make sense. No. The game is simple and it deserves credit for it. And you know, once you've got the rules down, you're pretty much never going to need to check the rule book. And even then, it does throw in a nice little touch where it tells you that if you end up with a situation where you don't quite get the rule, just choose the most thematic outcome that you can. Cool. It's nice that it just gives you a get out clause because as much as you could rag on it saying, well, why don't you develop the game better? There's like 2,500 plus cards in this box. Okay, give them a break. You know, you can only do so much. I like that there is a good way, a decent way to get out, which doesn't feel mechanical. It feels like, cool, it sticks with the theme. But yeah, I mean, this could have had like a 10 out of 10 for learning the game if the rulebook was just edited a bit better. But, you know, that being said, it's still an easy game.
Hooray!
So the open world aspect, yep, definitely you get that feeling here. If you're into exploration games, if you want just a setting where you don't know what's going on, you're on the planet, go and do stuff, then this game is exactly that. It's going to give you that feeling. You know, you start on a particular location, and the location is going to be vastly different potentially from the previous one that you had. So, you know, 1 minute you're starting in a cave, 1 minute you're starting on top of a mountaintop, next minute you're in the ocean, next minute you're being chased by a giant centipede or whatever. I mean, I'm just giving examples here of like out of my head. These aren't actually in the game, but it's just like a case of, okay, you know, cool. It's nice that you do have that situation. And then as you go around, I mean, you can go from a location, north, south, east, or west, and some of them are just straight up going to the next bit along. Some of them are a bit more involved, but then other things might be able to teleport you across the planet or anything. And this planet's pretty big. You know, in one of the books, it gives you a map of the whole planet, and I forget if it's 9 or 12 different squares, you know, A, B, C, D, or whatever, segments for the planet, and it's pretty large. You know, there's 900 odd locations here, or whatever. You know, I know the number, what is it, 800 and, let's say 801. So you're talking 800 odd locations here, and there's a lot of different places that you can go. In every game, you're gonna find something new. You might rinse and repeat 1 or 2 cards now and again. But for example, I take one character and I have to go find flora samples. Okay, fine. I've got a medic. There's more of a doctor. Okay, I'm doing pretty well on the green skill. I find items, you know, I think, oh, are these going to help me with being a doctor? Nope. I find a pike, I find a sword, I find weapons, and suddenly I'm like a killing machine. It's like, okay, that's a little bit different, but fair enough, that's how the game goes. But eventually I got the flora sample and got off the planet. And then in the next game, in fact, I even played one this morning. Well, let's say next game, well, I'll do the one this morning because it's more fresher in my mind. But that one, I took a captain character, sort of leader, like very good with movement action. So I thought, okay, travel's going to be a lot easier. I got a sword. Yeah, great. What was my mission? I had to reach my full potential. Okay, fine. It's a bit like Vindication in that respect. And so I get my character, I've got to like get experience. Okay, well I've got some experience cards, I just got to try and level them up, that's fine. And I move around and I start finding random sort of magic-y items and, you know, a couple of maps here and there. And I'm doing very much a survivalist trekker thing until I eventually found some power armor, and then I felt like I was in a Fallout series. But you do end up with some very different styles of characters and different locations. I mean, the first time I was trying to look around all the jungles and all the oceans, trying to find some sodding plants. But in the second one, I'm traipsing over mountaintops, and then I eventually ended up in some underground, you know, lava dungeon and stuff, you know, like dealing with sentient artificial robot things. There's a lot of cool ways that the game can play out, and it definitely does retain a good sense of theme, although we will touch a little bit on that in the bad section as well. But you know, if you want a game that's just going to play out a weird story for your character, this is going to do that, and it does it pretty well. suffice to say, all the other games also do this well, so this isn't exactly a new thing. I mean, you've got to work pretty hard for one of these types of games to not tell its theme well, but at least I can say this one at least, you know, sticks with the crowd.
This is the way.
The challenge dice system is decent enough. It's not exactly a brain-burny system, and a lot of the times there's only so much decision space with it. I mean, you want to refresh your pool as quickly as possible, so there are times when you will deliberately make a harder check at one point so that you know that when you do another check, all your stuff's going to refresh. You know, there's little mini decisions you can do like that, but other than that, it's not exactly, you know, hard to tell where you should be putting your dice. It's very much dumb choice and right choice, but again, it keeps things simple. But there are a couple of little cool manipulations that you can do with either skill tokens or the, you know, the different symbol and the cards that you've got. Some cards, when you put a die on it, will give you a boost token. Some don't. Some are very specific, you know. So I could put this die on this slot because it can fit, but then if I put it on this slot, then, you know, it holds that specific symbol, and there's no telling that I might roll that in the future. But then if I put it on the generic space, I get a boost token. Do I really want the boost, or do I want to play it safe? There's little decisions like that, which are cool. This game is not trying to be super complicated, and I'm glad that it doesn't end up being super complicated. But it's, you know, it's not going to test the brain cells or anything like that. It's a very simple dice system. You get what you expect.
Maybe we should
Put the dice away before I take them away.
For the price you pay for the box, you're getting mainly the variety aspect. I paid a premium for this because I wanted to get a review out, and so I paid the extortionate 80-something pound plus on their Stonemaier site. This is without a champion discount to get this game. Thankfully, it's not going to release at that price at retail. I'm pretty sure the retail price is going to be somewhere, I think, in the 50s mark. And if it ends up in that section, I think it will be fine, because you're paying for a lot of content here. Don't pay £80 for this, though. I don't think it's worth the £80 here, but needs must. I need to get it reviewed. Again, thank you, Patreons. You make this channel keep going. But the component quality is meh. I mean, you know, this is just like a little, like, you know, flimsy kind of linen finish like board. You've got the books, which are fine, you know, they're linen finish and they're decent enough. That's probably one of the better qualities. The dice are adequate, the tokens are cardboard, the money's cardboard. You know, the cards themselves are decent enough stock that I don't think you need to sleeve these, although to be fair, if you want to sleeve over 2,000 cards, then be my guest. But I don't think you need to worry too much about that. It's not really worth it. But you've got a couple of little sort of cardboard trays. Now, it is built to a budget. You're not paying for stellar component quality. The artwork is fine, but I don't think it's, like, particularly great. You know, the art is okay on the box cover, although that box cover is pretty generic when you look at it compared to a lot of box covers that, you know, do similar things. But the card artwork is mostly on the locations. The locations are decent, you know. They've got, you know, some interesting little artwork at times, but sometimes it looks a little faded, a little muted, or too dark to see what's going on, and I've seen better. You know, it's okay, it's passable. The art is more lacking when you've got some of these, like, little cards here, because it does something that games like Arcs did, which I wasn't a huge fan of the way it did it in there, where it gives you a half-decent picture on the front of the card, and then the rest of the card is all blank, or, you know, white. Or it might not even give you a full picture on a card. It might be kind of silhouetted or an outline of something. And, you know, Arcs did something similar with half of its cards. They do it a little bit here. And, you know, I guess it's kind of handy because it does make it a little bit cleaner on the card. There's usually quite a bit of information on each card that it's got to jam in. So if it made it too artistic, it would get in the way of the graphic design. But some of these cards can look a little cluttered, and the location artwork is meh. You know, it's not amazing. So most of the cost that you're paid is down to the variety, which, to be fair, is still worth it.
Shut up and take my money!
Right, we're going to get on to two very specific points here, and oh my word, boy, does this make my eyes roll a little bit. Guess what the player count rating for this game is? 1 to 6.
You serious?
1 to 6 players, are you serious? Okay, let's just quote from the book here for a second, okay? Solo play in Vantage is the same as any other player count. The book even says it. I mean, the prosecution rests.
Your Honor, I object.
You would!
Bastard!
The number of challenge dice scales as normal, with 10 in a solo game, then 12, 14, 16, blah blah. There is no automata to represent the other characters. You are in full control. No matter the player count, you only ever control one character. So what exactly is the difference between solo and multiplayer? Well, solo game, you've got your sheets, you've got the stats for yourself, you have your character with your grid of cards, you go to a location, and you can only normally do one action a turn before another player does something, but in solo play you just keep doing stuff, basically. You don't need to wait for other turns. So this is, oh yes, and you occasionally roll these dice for random skills, you roll challenge dice and put the stuff on cards, and you spend skill tokens to make your checks easier, okay? Here's what changes in a multiplayer game, right? People can spend skill tokens on your checks to make them easier, okay? Right? And then they can also, if the card, and I do mean if the card has a lightning bolt on it, it means that the other players can put the dice on that particular slot, unless they're in the same location as you, in which case they can do it freeform. Although trying to meet each other in the same location is extremely unlikely in this game.
And there was much rejoicing.
I have yet to accomplish this in any multiplayer game I have played. But, you know, that is basically it. And these lightning bolt slots are very rare. They're not common at all, so on occasions, like rare occasions, you'll be able to put a die on another player's slot. Okay? What else is there?
Well, we're waiting.
I am finished talking. That's it. Two things! Two things is what makes this a multiplayer game, and one of them barely even happens. So really, it's just the skill tokens. And the people who try to justify this as multiplayer basically come up with the excuse that, well, you read each other, all the stuff that's on the location cards, and you can tell people where you are and what you see and stuff and that. And it's like, does it really matter to you if I read it? My entire body tingles in the presence of a powerful artifact. The sensation is compounded by the intense pressure of being so deep underground. Is that useful at all to what you're doing over here when you're on some mountaintop miles across the entire planet looking at a plant? No, it means nothing. People justify this as a multiplayer game by injecting their own reason for it, which is to read each other's stuff. The multiplayer games, I kid you not, play out in the same manner that if you just sat 6 people around a table with a book in each hand and you read out a sentence to each other in turn and rolled a couple of dice. That is what the multiplayer experience is like. The game says 2 to 3 hours on it. It can take longer than 3 hours if you play a 5 to 6 player game. Trust me, I know this. You're basically just spending time listening to what other people are doing by themselves on their own little thing.
I'm going to tell you a story now. No, I'm good. It's short.
If you get enjoyment out of that, then fine, but otherwise, it's just not necessary. And trust me, I mean, if you want to play this with 2 to 3 players, even then 3 is a pinch. You want to play this with 2 players, say, you and your wife, you and your husband, or whatever, and you want to play this as a 2-player to have a little story game together and read to each other. That's fine. I think I could see this being a 2-player game if you want to do that. But every other player just adds length, length, length. And there is a layer of hell for the people who want to play this with 6 players and have to listen to 5 other players doing their story bits and actions before you get to participate in the game. It's not good, alright? It's not good. This is a solo game through and through.
He's out of line, but he's right.
So the time length, 2 to 3 hours. I got a little bit worried when I saw that on the box. I mean, 2 to 3 hours... And the problems that these other games have done in the past. I mean, Sleeping Gods is a very solid game, but it's a long campaign, you gotta play through it. Lands of Galzir is one that you kind of play through a week in the game, and then you get to save it and put it away, and you can kind of play it in a session. So it's kind of like episode of the week without really a campaign end. It's kind of like how Mythwind sort of works. And I've done a review on that one as well. That was pretty dull. But the the idea is that you can kind of do a game session and get enough out of the game. Seventh Continent had this problem where you had no idea where you were going, no idea which direction you needed to go, and the game could take you 30 minutes or it could take you 7 hours because you just didn't know where to go to finish the plot. It was aimless wandering.
We ain't found shit!
This one has a bit of that problem as well. You know, the game could end in 30 minutes. It could end in 3 hours. You don't know, because one problem that the game has is that it's a bit like on Tales of Arabian Nights, where stuff just kind of happens without necessarily any context to go with it. You've got 6 different skills types that appear on a on a section here, and some of them it's got like a wall of monitors here, a surveillance center, right? So you've got study, that kind of makes sense. Repair, hack, that kind of makes sense. Force what? The screen? I don't know. And push. Well, push what? The screen? What? You're just going to push the monitor over? Some of these skills just seem a little bit weird. And then when you actually read the outcomes, lots of the times they don't really, they're not things that you can predict. Rare occasions you might notice that there was a pair of pliers in the snow when you looked. So when you do the dash action, you dash away and take the pliers. Okay, fine, there was that little clue, although how was I supposed to know that was going to be the dash action? But there are a lot of times when you do the skill, something just happens and you just accept it happens, which is still interesting enough, but the problem is that you are still aimlessly wandering trying to find your mission. And with that little theme disconnect there, you've got 2 different missions that you're doing in the game. You've got the basic mission, which is, can take a while to do, but it's not too bad. It kind of depends. Sometimes you will take forever to do the mission because you just can't find a location that is relevant to it, and other times you'll do it in 10 seconds because you just by fluke come across a situation where you found the one location and the one out of 6 skills on that location that just gave you exactly what you needed. I had one where I had to fill my whole potential. I thought, how am I going to do this? I've got an experience card, but this is going to take a while to level up in that. And then I wound a location, did a skill that didn't even seem like it was the outcome or whatever, and I found a suit of power armor, and suddenly I completed the mission goal in like 25 minutes. It's like, wow, that didn't take me long, did it? And, but then you think, all right, I'll progress and do a Destiny mission. The Destiny mission where you fill out your 9 cards is very straightforward. I mean, you've just got to fill out 9 cards on your grid, which is pretty easy to do. You just go around and find stuff, and then you got to survive 6 more turns. Okay, great. But then you got the Destiny cards, like triangulate a signal from 3 different towers. Where are these towers? You don't know. So you expect me to go around this entire planet and find 3 towers, of which I have no idea where the hell they are, and do this signal before I can end the game. Okay? What about this other one? Repair the ship. Okay? Where's the stuff I need to repair the ship? Can't tell you. Well, okay. Any rough idea? Nope. How many pieces of wreckage are there that I need to find? Can't tell you. How the hell am I supposed to do this mission then?
I missed the part where that's my problem.
This is the problem with Destiny victories. The Destiny victories, other than the main one for the 9 cards, take too friggin' long. If you want to play an epic 6-hour game of this, where you are just wandering around hoping you'll find the answer to them, then great. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to play this for 6 hours when I've got that situation. I mean, you start the game and then 30 minutes later, you finish your mission goal. Cool, I could end the game right there and just make it a cool half-hour game. Perfect. Maybe it took me a bit longer to do it. It took me the 60 minutes. Okay, great. Bear in mind, this is solo times. This is mostly a multiplayer timetable here. But then it's going to take me twice that long to do the Destiny one. It's kind of odd. It's annoying, and Seventh Continent had the same problem. It just, puts you in a situation where you just wander around, and yes, you're doing the enjoyable exploration thing, but it does great. It does slowly become a grind, and especially when you've already got like a full grid of cards nearly, and you're bulldozing your way through the skills, because it gets pretty easy by the time you get to that level that you're not really going to lose the game at that point. You're just waiting for the trigger that says you win, and that isn't fun at that stage.
How long is this going to take?
As an addendum though to the whole, wandering aimlessly around, there are some weird aspects where, there's, on the mission card, there's 4 different skills that you can do. Hone, plead, research, and pivot, or something like that. And one or two of them tend to give you cards and skill tokens. One of them gives you a useful pointer about where the hell you should be going, and the other one cuts the difficulty in half. Each one of these are accessible, they all can be done once per game, and they are skill check 2 level, i.e. really easy. There is no reason you should not do every single one of these skills before the game starts, before you move to another location. Because yes, you might roll badly, as I've said before, but still, it's like, why would you not do these? They give you tokens, skills, and useful stuff, and it cuts the difficulty down with no repercussions, or next to 0 repercussions. So why are they on the card readily accessible like that? And they all seem to be the same on every single mission card, you know, without really any sense of variety in that aspect. So I found this kind of odd, really.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
And whether you do well at this game is going to be heavily dependent on the dice luck. You know, as I mentioned, that you are basically just finding stuff that happens to you at random, pretty much. You know, the contextual aspect of why some of these things happen is not really readily apparent a lot of the time. But also, whether you do well at this game is going to depend pretty much entirely on your dice rolling. You can have all the slots in the world on your cards, but if you roll badly, you're going to fail. It's just going to happen. You know, you're there doing skill checks, and because you have no idea how hard the check's going to be when you actually do the thing, you know, I might think, it's okay, I'm just going to move over to there. Yep, fine, let's find the paragraph in the book to move to that bit. Skill check 6. Well, that was a bit unexpected, but then you do another skill, and it's like, okay, this could probably take me some time. Skill check 2. You've no idea how hard it's going to be. So you've got the random aspect of just coming across really hard skill checks at times that don't suit what you've got, but then you are rolling a bunch of dice, and those dice could just come up with symbols that just absolutely hose you, and that's what kills off your team. It's not you making bad decisions, it's not you making a tactical, like, skillful choice wrong, it's just stuff happens, and that's fine, up to a point. Certainly I can deal with it a bit more in a solo game, but in a multiplayer game, it hurts to basically just have, well, we spent a lot of time here reading stories to each other, and the dice just basically hosed us. Great.
That's a fancy word for losing!
A few more examples from the whole theme disconnect thing here. I'll put the pictures up, but I need to sort of use my phone to kind of like get reference to these. So, one example here. A massive animal lingers over a cliff, its tentacles waving in the wind. Okay, you can barely see the animal in the picture, but it's like, okay, whatever this thing is. Okay, I can relieve it. Relieve it from what? Is it in pain? I don't really know, but okay, I assume it is. And then you relieve it, and then it's like, okay, what does happen? It's like, the creature thanks you for what you're about to do, gain this item. And I gain this green gem. Well, what was it, eating it? Or what, did it just have it in its mouth? What's the green gem got to do with it? It's like, it's not in the picture, it just sort of turns up kind of randomly. Other ones that I found a little bit weird was, there's a particular thing on your character where you can just do an equip skill, like just to get a weapon out of the deck. Okay, great. And the one on the particular character was equip your saber. Okay, equip your saber, get a sword item, great. Challenge rating 4. 4? An easy skill is 2. I don't think there's ever a 1 apart from moving to a next location. So most skills are, you know, probably 3+. 4 is reasonably difficult though. To equip my saber. What exactly in terms of health, time, and morale is going to hurt when I equip my saber? You know, do I go like, right, I'm going to put my sword on her, and I take it out of its halberd, and it's like, when will the killing end? You know, it's like, what? You know, alright, do I get it stuck in the halberd? It's like, right, I've equipped my saber, and it's like, God's sake, stupid stuff. You know, 2 hours later, suddenly I've got my saber out. You know, how does that work? And then health. Okay, I'm equipping my saber. Yes, it's a sharp, pointy object. I feel like I can equip my saber without stabbing myself 20 times before I do it.
He is an idiot. We have purposely trained him wrong, as a joke.
So, why is it a category 4, you know, skill check? It's like, that doesn't make any thematic sense whatsoever. Was there other, like, little things? Hang on, trying to find the other photos for it. So, this one, and it says pick the most thematic reason, I know, but there was an objective I had which was enter an underground cave. Okay, underground cave. How do I know if it's a cave? I mean, I assume the card would tell me if it's a cave, right? Okay, I found a bit that said dig underground. Well, sorry, dig down deeper into the earth. Like, that was its word specifically. Okay, I've done that. You're now in a, like, you're now in some area with lava and some sentient thing in front of you. It doesn't say the words underground or cave, though. okay? But there's a rock formation above me. There's lava right by my feet. I feel like I'm underground at this point, but it doesn't say cave, doesn't say underground. Does it count for my objective? I don't know. I decided it did because thematically it makes sense that I'm under friggin' ground. But I don't know, do I need to find a cave specific? It was just kind of odd that it wasn't very clear on that fact. Anything else? Oh yeah, this one I found stupid. The maps. There are occasions where you can find the maps to help you with certain objectives, and they're part of a book, a spiral-bound book here, and it's got the grid references on there, right? You spend the boost token to look at the map, but it only says you can do it until the end of the turn. Why? Why has this game got to suddenly become a memory game all of a sudden? You know, I have the map book here. I can look at the friggin' map whenever I want. It's not on a timer. You know, I don't have this situation where I'm kind of like going to say, right, okay, I shall look at the map. Right. Okay, I got to go to A, B, say B, there's a tower over there, and oh, for God's sake! You know, it doesn't, that's not how books work. Why have I suddenly got to acquire boost tokens on the card to read a page that I can just look at any time? It's, you know, and these are nitpicks. I'm not saying that the game's stupid or crap because of it. I'm just saying that as much as the theme is there with some of the exploration, there are times where some context and some contextual aspects of it just kind of don't make sense. And it does couple with the fact that what you're doing in the game in terms of the actions and what their outcomes are do feel kind of random. You know, Tales of the Arabian Nights level random, where you've got like, here's a beggar. Do you kill, beg, befriend, hug, steal, whatever, you know, and you have those. It's on that kind of level. A lot of the times these actions just play out as they do, and it's fun to see what happens. But it does feel that you might as well at times just roll a die and see which skill you want to pick, although to be honest, dumb choice and right choice, you're going to pick the skills where you've got the most card slots and skill tokens that can utilize it, because if you don't, unless you have some really good reason as to why it would actually be useful to do that skill, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
The problem is choice.
So, the moment of truth. Vantage. Have Stonemaier finally put out a game that I can give a seal of endorsement to? Well, there is a lot of good stuff here. I mean, I do love the fact that it is a simpler game. Lands of Galzier is simple. One reason it's still on the shelf. This one is also simple. If anything, it might even be slightly simpler than Lands of Galzier, to be honest. I don't know, they're both kind of on par. But, you know, the fact that they are simple and the fact that both can be done in a play session rather than a campaign does make this a lot more accessible. We're not talking like mass market here, but it's definitely not a heavy game. It's, you know, barely even, I would even call it midway. It's light. It's lightish. Not gateway light, but it's light. It's not going to take you long to get the rules down, even though the rulebook could have done it a lot better. The open world exploration factor is here in spades. You definitely are going to get that feeling of, here's a planet, bunch of stuff's on it, go do what you like and see what story plays out. That bit is fun. The challenge dice system is pretty basic. It's not gonna like burn a brain cell or anything. It's pretty easy to manipulate, but it's still something. It's a light dice game, so why not? Most of the core aspect of this game is the whole exploration and acquiring loot and cards and stuff, you know, which is pretty cool. That being said, component quality is not particularly fantastic. The artwork is fine, but not amazing, so it's not much of a looker on the table. The game length is insanely variable because it could take you 30 minutes to finish a game. It could take you 5 hours to finish a game. You just don't know because of the fact that some of the Destiny goals are so damn near impossible to achieve because it just does not. I mean, there's do not hold your hand, and then there's like put a blindfold on you. It kind of goes to that level, and it is a little bit infuriating doing the Destiny missions, unless you do the 9-card one that just auto ends the game in 6 turns. That one's fairly easy, but trying to do any of the others, you better be in it for the long haul, and I'm just not really. Playing this multiplayer, waste of time. Yeah, you can spend a skill token on your turn or occasionally put a dice slot, but unless you get a kick out of sitting around a table and just reading stories to each other like we're in primary school, then, you know, that multiplayer is pointless. You know, I don't recommend this as anything more than a 2-player game. 3, 4 would still take too long, and I don't see the point. 5 to 6, after experience, you have to be a colossal nutcase to want to play this at 5 or 6 players. The fact that they even put that on the box beggars belief. Okay, that is a pure marketing tactic and nothing else. But is the game fun to play? Yes. Overall, I actually do think it's a fun game. You know, it's got problems. I do wish the length was a bit more easier to kind of constrict down, and I certainly, as I say, don't recommend it for multiplayer. But you don't have to do a huge amount of the filing system like you do in other games because of the placeholder thing. The game can end in a short time if you just stick to doing mission goals. Okay, cool. There is a lot of variety in the game. It's going to be fresh each time, and it's simple rules. It's overall fun. It's overall good. But as high as it can go, you know, it's not as good as some of the other ones in the genre. I mean, I think I prefer Sleeping Gods mechanics, even though it is a longer, more involved game. I do prefer Lands of Gausier for having better story in it, having the app companion, and still being like a once a session type thing. But this is still good. I'm going to give it overall a 7 out of 10. I think I finally can give a Stonemaier game a seal of endorsement. But 7's about as high as I can go, and I did to a 6 to say it was above average. Although, bear in mind, this is a 7 out of 10 as a solo game. If you're going to buy this purely as a solo player, you will get the most fun out of this game that you can. If you're buying this hoping that you're going to be playing this with 4 to 6 players on a regular basis, you're in for a world of hurt. My rating drops quite considerably when you throw in multiplayer, and honestly, I would almost want to just put an asterisk in 2 to 6 players, or certainly in 3 to 6 players, to ban anybody playing this at 3 to 6 players. It really isn't fun. It's not fun to do. It's not even fun to watch. Trust me, I have watched some playthroughs. It's not good to watch this game being played out. So, as a solo game, 7 out of 10. It's good. I give it a seal of recommendation, and I think it's worth looking into, providing you can get it cheaper than it was on Stonemaier's website. You know, wait for it to come out on retail. Don't buy any of the extra upgrades and stuff like that. You really don't need them. You know, just stick to as cheap a copy of the game as you can get, and you'll have some fun with it. But one thing that the game is not unique. It's been done before, multiple times, in some cases better, as I've been describing. When I see people and reviewers talk about this game being truly unique, I roll my eyes because I'm pretty sure we can quote The Princess Bride on this one.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
It really isn't. It's been done before. This is practically a Seventh Continent clone in the way it operates. It just uses a different system for its skill checks. But what you're doing in the game and how the cards work and everything like that is basically Seventh Continent. It's just a good thing that this one cuts out a lot of the bloat from Seventh Continent and makes it a much more streamlined affair. Particularly when you actually use the reference cards on the back of the books, which seem to be easier to understand than the rulebook, you know, which is kind of weird. But, you know, this is a good game for solo players. Worth looking into. For me, I'm glad I've played it. I'll keep it for a little bit and see, you know, if it rises up in rating or something. But yeah, it's going to be a solo game for me, for sure. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on the page. Don't forget to check out the rest of my content. There has been The Old King's Crown, there's been Nature, there's been Luthier that I did recently. Check out that big bumper review for that Kickstarter release. And by all means, check out the rest of my content. I hope to do some more digital playthroughs in the future. And Pagola, I need to record at some point today so I can review that one. So thank you to the patrons who help keep this channel going. By all means, if you want to subscribe to the Patreon, then please do, because that's how I can get games like this early to try and review them, because trust me, Stonemaier doesn't like sending me review copies. You know, I wonder why. But, you know, take care, and remember, as always, regardless of whether you just like to aimlessly wander around a planet all day to see what happens, it's still only a game, so bye for now.